Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another week of daily devotionals from the spiritual disciplines. Today, we're going to be talking about the discipline of obedience. So let's get started. So, obedience. Now, this could be a tough one for a lot of us. Let me start out by saying this. To love God is to obey God. To love God is to obey God. I want to share a story out of 1 Samuel chapter 15. Now, I'll set this up really quickly. Samuel, who was a prophet of God, spoke on behalf of God and told the king of Israel named Saul to go attack the Amalekites. Not only did Samuel, on behalf of God, tell Saul to attack the Amalekites, but also to destroy all of their land, to destroy the cattle, the sheep, the crops, everything, the people. So Saul goes and takes the army, wins the battle, but some of his men take sheep and oxen as spoils of war. So starting in verse 13, Samuel went to Saul, and Saul said to him, "Blessed are you of the Lord. I have performed the commandment of the Lord." But Samuel said, "What then is this bleating of sheep in my ears, and the lowing of the oxen which I hear?" And Saul said, "They have brought them from the Amalekites. For the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice to the Lord your God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed." Then Samuel said to Saul, "Be quiet, and I will tell you what the Lord said to me last night." And Saul said, "Speak on." So Samuel said, "When you were little in your own eyes, were you not the head of the tribes of Israel? And did not the Lord anoint you king over Israel? Now the Lord sent you on a mission and said, 'Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are consumed.' Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Why did you swoop down on the spoil and do evil in the sight of the Lord?" So Samuel's like, "No, you didn't do what God said. You sort of did, but you didn't obey what God said." In verse 20, Saul said to Samuel, "But I have obeyed the voice of the Lord and gone on the mission on which the Lord sent me, and brought back Agag, king of the Amalekites. I have utterly destroyed the Amalekites, but the people took of the plunder, and the sheep, and the best of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice to the Lord your God in Gilgal." Saul is basically saying, "But I did what I was told," right? How many times have we heard that? But Samuel said, "Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams." What God is saying here is, look, I don't want you to just do nice things for me. I would rather you just obey me. So God wants us to obey him, not because he's selfish or insecure or petty, but because there is safety in obedience. Outside of obedience, there is death and rebellion and sin. This reminds me, during this time of quarantine, our kids are here and they like to ride their scooters and their bikes. Well, today they were out and they were kept going in the street and riding in the street. And I would say, hey, you can't play in the street. See, people on our street like to use our street for, they drive their cars real fast, and I just don't want them to get hit by cars. Now, I could stop and explain myself, or I could just say, hey, get out of the street, and then explain after they've obeyed. There is safety in obedience. It isn't about what you choose to do for God. It is about what God chooses for you to do. Obedience is doing exactly what God told me to do and doing it quickly because I love and trust him. Obedience first, understanding later. Obedience is digital. Understanding is analog. We choose to obey. We may not understand, but we choose to obey. Obedience, then understanding. Understanding may never come, but we choose to obey now because we love him. There is safety in obedience. So I hope that this was a blessing for you today. The challenge today is to go throughout today obeying what God has told you to do. Obedience is better than sacrifice. So we love you guys. Tune in the rest of this week for more devos on the spiritual discipline.